No mai, haere mai, take 4. The Self That Teaches, assignment 1, introduction. I thought I'd start off introducing myself in my backyard. It's a typical Kiwi backyard, or an ideal Kiwi backyard, or just an underdeveloped space depending on your worldview. I've got my clothesline, I've got my tool shed, I've got my lemon tree, and I've got my spot where I'm going to tell you about my worldview. Just to presage this a little bit, I'm not a Christian, unlike most of the other people on the course, but which means it's trickier to explain your worldview. You've got to get into it. I think I'm typically Kiwi in my worldview, which means it was unexamined for most of my life. But I'll run it down. I believe in God. Not a personal God, and I believe in God on a logical basis, that everything we know comes from what was before. So energy doesn't get destroyed. So if you trace it back, something never came from nothing. So the something that was there, the prime mover, yeah, that's your God right there. Moving on from that, I believe the nature of reality is energy, and most of that energy we think about in terms of it being matter. I think my thoughts emerge from my brain matter, and when my brain is no more, then I won't be. I think that motivates a lot of human behavior, the denial of death. We want to plug into something that's greater than us. So where does that leave you in terms of purpose, and in terms of what is good and should you be good and how to be good? I think you can be all that without a religion. And purpose of life is to enjoy the fruits of our reason, which it sounds hedonistic, but in my experience, a lot of the best things, the fruits, if you were, didn't feel that good to go through at the time, but you appreciate them afterwards. So that's my worldview in a nutshell. More complicated than just saying I'm Christian. Even though Ryken says, and I've observed it myself, there's a lot of variety in Christian beliefs. But now I'll go inside and get to the academics. You've heard about my worldview outside. I'll talk about what a worldview is. So the quote here that you've probably heard before is that we don't see the world as it is, we see it as we are. And that as we are, but that's our worldview. It's a framework through which new ideas are processed and have to fit into in order to be understood. C.S. Lewis, or it is the looking glass. Your Kenneth Richards has his shades of reality. But unlike those physical objects, they're much trickier. You can't just take them off. And although you can see it as a barrier, like a problem that distorts your view of the world, everyone needs a worldview. And the reading I've got there is Simon Winchester, who had a disorder where he would have trouble with his worldview. And not through drugs or extreme living. He just he had a legitimate disorder that he would wake up on random days and not be able to attach what he was perceiving to himself. Eventually it came right, and he became a best-selling author. But yeah, it was a rocky, good story. So a related but broader idea is social imaginary, which, unlike worldview, it's not just personal but social, and it's an influence running under our individual worldviews. Now I'm going to talk about how this concept of a worldview applies to teaching. Um, so, in order to be a good teacher, you have to put yourself in their shoes, which means entertaining their ideas, understanding what's relevant to them, so that when you present information and it goes through their lenses, and then they can fit it into what they already know. I thought of an example of this. It was a YouTube recommend about 6 months ago, I reckon. And it was a World War II video that shows young soldiers how to shoot a gun out the side of an aeroplane. And I thought of this because they really have here stepped into the shoes of these young civilians and tried to engage them. They've done this by using cartoons, which is something more engaging to them, and it helps depersonalize it too, actually. And then over here, they're using the example of the newspaper run, that something that many 1940s kids would have had. And so they're teaching them that in the same way, when you threw newspapers at the front door, you had to lead your shots. You're going to have to do the same on an aeroplane. So I thought, yeah, this is a striking, but sinister example of how they've adapted their content to the people they're teaching. This is my ko waiaho. On the left side, you have my past over the kaimais and the Waikato. It's very self-explanatory: dirt, trees, honey. Grew up on a fruit tree nursery. In the middle is my partner and our new child, and over here the bass clef represents me. So they're in together, and on the right hand side we've got my present. This is Mount Maunganui. My recent past, which was something I'm proud of, is the trades, and that's a glass fitting tool. And I want to ensure when I get to teaching that trades are a viable option. Not to push them in the direction, just to make them aware that hey, this is something you can do, and it doesn't take long, and it's fairly marketable. And then the potama shape in the middle represents growth and teaching. And to me, the step-like structure of it is how you often want to give up when you encounter something big, but if you can break it down into smaller steps, you can do it. There's a thing when learning physical skills that you start slowly, but accurately, and then later on you can speed that up. So that's a way of breaking down physical skills. This is my personal passionate profession, my statement about the kind of teacher I want to be. The first point kind of comes back to what Gail was saying about breathing and recentering, and looking after yourself as a teacher. So I put that on top. The second one, I would relate that to what we've been saying about the worldview. You take an interest in your students and the wider world. That was something that was emphasized by the Rudolf Steiner books I was reading. You don't want to become an isolated academic. You don't want to be the teacher who thinks their subject's the most important. So being well-rounded is what the second one comes back to. And the third one, it's that future focus that's in the New Zealand curriculum. So, viewing school or classroom or teaching or learning not as an end to itself, but as a preparatory step for the rest of a student's life. Talk about the purpose of education, which is very much in the national conversation with the changing curriculum. And these are Biesta's 3 purposes of education. Qualification, that's the most obvious one. The knowledge and skills gained. Some people think this is all schools should do, is teach those things and then show them to employers or other education providers. Hey, this is what they know. The next one, socialization. So that's fitting into existing social orders. And there have been, when I came through school, there was some evidence of this, such as sex education, drug education. We didn't have so much environmental education, but that's another example. So socialization, even if these programs aren't present in school, you're still going to get it through school. It's unavoidable because just by choosing subjects, you're showing the values that a society has. And the last one, the distinction Biesta makes is subjectification, and it's the trickiest one to grasp out of the 3. And subjectification is our freedom to be the main character in our life and our willingness and belief in our ability to engage with the world. So this last bullet point down here, Biesta was critical of policy that reduced the teacher's role to just learning and teaching. As he pointed out, teachers have 3 domains, 3 purposes: their qualification, socialization, and subjectification. And they have to use their judgment to choose between these roles, which places it more, it makes it more of an art than a science that can reduce teaching down to just inputs and outputs. So I think if Biesta could see the New Zealand curriculum, he would be happy with it. It's broader than just acquiring knowledge. In page 8 of it, it includes skills like growing confidence, helping social skills, guiding them to be contributors of society. So you can plug all those into Biesta's 3 purposes, and our curriculum covers them all. It acknowledges the Treaty of Waitangi on page 9 and states that all students should have the opportunity to learn Te Reo Māori and tikanga. Specifically, my subject area science is broken down into strands. There are 5 or 6 of them. A couple of examples are the living world and the nature of science. And there's just a paragraph description on each, so it really currently leaves a lot of agency up to the teacher, which is great. And it states that students shouldn't only attain scientific knowledge, but should be able to apply it in making informed decisions or problem solving. Education Council Code of Standards, it's something you agree to when you register to be a teacher. It's written in Maori and English, and it describes the expectations the Teaching Council has of its members. These expectations are to the teaching profession, learners, families, and society, so it's very far-reaching. When I read it, it does, most people would say, this is common sense. It says to respect learners, foster relationships with the parents. I can't read anything here that conflicts with my worldview. I think for international people, the only thing that's new would be the commitment to Treaty of Waitangi principles. Or Imago Dei. So it's the idea that we're created in God's image. It comes from the book of Genesis. It's referring not to the the physical properties of God. It's not saying he has 10 fingers like us and lungs. It's referring to the internal qualities of God. Specifically that he gave us the choice. So he didn't make us as robots. He made us in a way that we can choose to follow or not follow as we see fit. So that's the self-determination, gifts of consciousness, creativity and reason, all given uniquely to man to do God's work. So relating this to myself, I believe people have all these qualities, and all people have all these qualities, and they have them to a higher degree than animals do, and in combination with each other as well. Which, in a classroom sense, it's great to be reminded of that the potential of your learners. Even though I don't believe they're directly divine or part of God's plan, the students I'll have will nevertheless have these God-given qualities. These are Maori pedagogies that clicked for me in my worldview, something I could see, oh yeah, I know what that is, and I could see straight away how it could work in a teaching environment. One of them is using songs to help you remember. I had a social studies teacher who used to say that we could sing all the pop songs and the rap lyrics, and she said, well, there's a lot of information there. That's evidence that you can store more than you know, and using songs is a powerful way to do that. There's some famous, semi-famous YouTube science teachers who create raps with their and put them on YouTube for their students to remember. It's a pretty enticing idea. Tuakana Taina. There's a Japanese social role system called senpai and kohai, or the buddy system in schools. And yeah, it's something you'd like to implement. Ako or reciprocal learning. So I've experienced learning best when I'm put in a position to teach, and it allows students to have agency. So these are Maori pedagogies that I straight away thought, yeah, I can slot that in. Mahi ka ora. I looked for whakatauki that reflect my worldview, and this one stood out. It means well-being or prosperity through work. I view learning as something that rewards the worker. After academics have described education and policymakers have defined it, there's still an army of teachers that'll be required to teach. It's not something that's been automated. Education has stubbornly resisted shortcuts, and any recipe for success requires first-hand experience to see it through. And on that note, I'll finish my presentation.